Good day, fellow rockers and moshers. Welcome to the Metal Connection, the connection to all things metal. I'm J Dub, and today on the show we got a really cool show lined up here with a couple guests, and we are doing our top favorite 80s power metal albums. So yeah, we'll probably kickstart the show off with some introductions, and also our guests have channels of their own, so I'm going to get them to plug their channels as well. So Chad, if you want to go up first here and introduce yourself.
Yeah, Chad, the Metallurgist. My channel is called Chad the Metallurgist. Mainly showing off, sharing my collection, any new stuff I get, CDs, tapes, vinyl. Yeah, been into metal since probably 86, 87, around about that time. Initially started getting into it with tapes.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. And I will link your guys' channels in the description below and things like that if people don't know how to spell it per se, so we can get that all nailed out there. And Frederick, if you want to go up next.
That's a good, yeah. Hello, my name is Frederick. My channel is under my name, Frederick Zunko, and I show vinyl, some obscure stuff, some thrash, some black metal, and I started listening to metal about in 1980. That's when I started to hear metal, and yeah, and ever since I've just been full steam ahead into it.
Yeah, you guys are fully authentic guys from the 80s, so that's why I had to get you aboard for this show. You guys are full on authentic. You guys are, from the time. You guys are older than me, so you guys are going to be spot on with all these picks. I know.
I'm probably getting too old.
Probably best.
And I will do a little fair warning. I don't believe anybody's picks are like in an order per se.
No.
Order. So these are just more of a generalized, some of our favorite 80s power metal albums. So I think we'll probably just kickstart here and do some more. Well, I actually also will say I did have someone else planned for the show, but he kind of couldn't get on. He couldn't really figure out how to connect, sort of thing. So we originally were just going to do 5 picks each, but I think we're going to more or less kind of wing it here and maybe do 5, 10, whatever sort of thing. So it's great if you're along for the ride watching, and hopefully you discover some obscure kind of power metal albums that you may have skipped over or didn't ever hear of. So this one's going to be really cool. And so we'll probably kickstart the show off with Chad, if you want to go up with your first pick, so to speak.
Yep. Well, you mentioned obscure. Well, this one's not obscure. This is I might as well go straight out of the gate and just Halloween, Keeper of the Seven Keys, Part 2 from 88. There you go. Part 1. I was trying to work out whether it'd be Part 1 or Part 2. Decided to go Part 2 just because I like a few more songs on this one over Part 1, but neither here or there, really. Probably needs no real introduction, really. Michael Kiske on the vocals. His second album on the vocals. Part 1 was his first album. I think this is a bit of a landmark release, really, for everybody into the power metal and the heavy metal at the time. Great tracks on it. Eagle Fly Free, Always Walk Alone. We Got the Riot, March of Time, I Want Out, and the epic Keeper of the Seven Keys. It's just a great album.
What do you think of that song, Dr. Steele?
Look, it's okay. I just take it as their sort of a bit like Rise and Fall, a bit of human, bit of humor in there. They've always been a bit of a, especially in this era, a bit of a humor band.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't really like that song on that album, but I kind of like it because it's funny, it's lighthearted, and they take the piss out of themselves, which is great, So
yeah, and I never skip any tracks on this album. Dr. Steele is not my favorite track, but it's fine,
Yeah.
They did release a single for that track. They did release a single, like a little 7-inch LP for that.
And a 12-inch as well, yeah.
I know I was actually checking out the cover. I was like, oh, the cover's really cool. I'd actually probably buy that, kind of just for the cover sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good album. Great pick there, Chad.
Yeah. So I thought I'd just get this one out of the way straight up.
And I do agree. I know me personally, I think I do slightly like that Keeper of the Keys 2 over number 1. Just slightly, right? I do
Yeah.
probably do prefer that one. And also, kind of a heads up, well, we're going to get into it, but I actually did leave Halloween off my list because I kind of knew that someone else was going to touch on it. So
Yeah.
rather than kind of double pick albums I knew that were going to get touched on, I left them off. Although if this were just a solo video, I would absolutely pick Halloween for power metal. They kind of innovated that whole European power metal, so to speak. So that's obviously a spot on pick. So I'm glad we did touch on that and sort of get it out of the way, sort of thing.
You
Although
get it out of the way. We all know where we're coming from. That's
even
good.
though I think Frederic did plan on mentioning the Halloween, so you are more than welcome as well. So actually, we will kind of just tail it off into Frederic's next pick.
Okay. My first pick is an obscure sort of power metal. This Slaughter Extroyers, Winter Kill.
Yeah, right.
US band. This was released in 1985, but this is a reissue on Cult Metal Records.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just, like it's power metal, but it has that with that speed metal elements into it. This was their only record that they ever did. It was self-released, and an original copy goes for a lot of money.
Yeah, a few dollars.
Yeah, a lot of money. But Cult Metal Records did a great reissue on this. Some great songs. My favorite song is a song called Motherfucker, which is a great great song. You got Winter Kill, Black Rose and Thorns. It's just pure, those high pitched those high pitched falsetto vocals that the early 80s US metal bands had in the day.
Yep.
So it's it's a very obscure power metal band, bordering onto speed. But what is power metal? It is certainly associated with speed metal because it's got quite the fast guitars. So yeah.
Yeah, and then you've also got on the other end, you've got power metal, which is like standard heavy metal as well. It blends in that direction as well. It's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's a mix of everything. It's got a bit of some thrash in there as well. It's just it's power metal is very broad, very broad. I would say, yeah.
And in the 80s, it wasn't thrown around that much, that term anyway. It was
right. No, it was just called
either speed metal or heavy metal.
Yeah, the metal scene was called just US metal. It was just called metal because the term power metal came later on. Like another album I'll show later, which is very controversial. So
cool.
Yeah. So Slaughter Extroyers. If you haven't heard it, I definitely recommend to get it. It's a great album, very obscure, and just a brilliant debut, one and off only album.
You definitely got me with that one. I've never heard of it. I've never
done. Yeah.
Came across that name. Nothing. Wow. And again, did you say it's 1985?
It was released in 1985. This is a 2021 reissue.
Oh. Yeah, wow.
Two of the members of this band passed away, but it's just a great tribute to the band and cult metal classics out of Greece. They have a really good reissue, and really great album.
Oh, that's great. I definitely would want to check that out. And I don't know, maybe this would be a good time. I wouldn't really want to put you guys on the spot or anything, but like, how would you guys define power metal for you personally?
It's hard, It's sometimes when you listen to something, you think, oh yeah, that's power metal. It's funny, Sometimes it's the vocals, but then you have vocals that are power metal that don't have the high, the higher, more falsetto vocals,
Yeah.
So I guess, with a combination of, would you say more upbeat? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to
solos. It's hard to define. I find it hard to define, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree, Chad. It is hard to define because like the early stuff. You had that high vocals, and then when you come into the 90s, you get the more operatic sort of vocals, and then it's just it's really hard to pinpoint. Really.
I mean, a lot of people used to say the vocals, but I can think of quite a few bands that we'll probably be discussing today that don't have those higher vocals. They have sort of a mid-range vocal. So, explosion there.
Yeah, that was my front door.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd say generally you are going to have a talented high pitchy type singer, and I think the main thing is that if you did want to be a power metal band in the 80s, you were probably going off what Judas Priest was doing in the later half of the 70s, and also what Rainbow and Dio was doing on those first couple albums. So in terms of that, I think the lyrical content for bands in the 80s, we're probably thinking, hey, if we want to be a power metal band or in that realm, we're probably going to have to touch on a bunch of fantasy type themes and things like that, right?
Even back in the 80s too, it was more too, a lot of power metal sort of speed metal, like the early Running Wild LPs were more of the satanic sort of power speed metal.
Yep.
So yeah, so it's just it's very but that was the European sort of style. It was more of the more darker style, and then later on, like when Dio arrived, they started to sing about dragons and unicorns and elves and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that kind of just was kind of like the themes, and a lot of the bands says, hey, if we're going to be power metal, we got to be doing these fantasy type themes, dragons, swords, wizards, Lord of the Rings type stuff. So,
Jamie, what do you think of do you think all this fantasy power metal is getting a bit stale now? Do you think it's time to bands to sort of go something totally different, or do you think that the fantasy metal should stay?
That's probably a whole topic on itself, as we're kind of just doing a thing. But, probably in a sense where I think a lot of the bands are probably doing overusing the symphonic stuff and getting away from the straight up heavy metal speed kind of aspects that a lot of the bands were doing in the 80s. Obviously some of the 90s bands were coming along, like Sonata Arctica and Stratovarius was kind of switching over to symphonic, and even Blind Guardian just basically switched over to pure symphonics and things like that. So, I think probably a lot of the modern bands are probably overusing the symphonic stuff a little bit too much.
Yep, sure.
Okay.
But I will tail it off into my first pick, and I originally did want to crunch this down to 5, and it was super difficult. I originally had a stack of like 20, and I'm like, how am I going to narrow this down to just 5? It's freaking pretty impossible. But some of my first ones I'm going to show are definitely kind of up there for me. So I'm going to show the first attacker here, Battle at Helms Deep. And, just looking at this cover, that this is power. Like, you don't even need to hear it. You don't even
Fighting a dragon.
Yeah, you don't even need to hear it to know what you're getting yourself into with this. Again, I know a lot of people think this album cover is corny. I actually love it.
I love it. Yeah, the corny of the cover. Yeah, the corny of the cover. Yeah, it's great.
I love it because you do know exactly what you're getting yourself into, and it's not like these guys were no slouches too. The singer was doing some super high pitch, kind of almost in a falsetto range. Like, I know there's even times where I think, hey, there's kind of some King Diamond-y kind of stuff going on here.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
So again, the vocalists are super talented. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but yeah, this is just full on power metal here.
And it's also very speedy too, isn't it? A bit of speed metal in there as well.
For sure, yep. Yeah. I think a lot of power metal does veer into either kind of
speed metal,
power or thrash power or just heavy power.
Yeah.
But you can kind of single out what kind of would fall into that power metal range when you kind of look at song titles or lyrical themes, and a lot of the stuff would be kind of more into that fantasy.
What do you think of the second Attacker album? Have you heard the second
one? Second Coming? Oh yeah, that's great. It's incredible.
That's a great album, yeah.
I don't have it. I'd love to have it. You know,
Me
something
too.
you
Yeah.
have to fork out a little. That's not really too much more expensive, really. But on this in particular, I know they did reissue with this with the really terrible cover.
Yeah.
I
No,
can't
no,
even
yeah.
understand. I can't even understand why they would try to switch the cover from that to this. So
Is that an
I
OG
obviously
copy?
rocked that original cover, but
Is that an OG copy, Jamie?
no, this is a
Metal Blade.
you know, obviously, just even the song titles on here: "The Wrath of Nevermore," "Battle at Helms Deep," "Slayer's Blade," you know, "The Attacker," "The Hermit." So, you know, we're full on here with those themes. That's kind of spot on with that stuff. I don't know. I'm sure you guys have probably heard it or maybe not. So,
Yeah, I used to have that on vinyl years ago, and at the time, you know, I had to get rid of it because I needed the money at the time, and
Yeah.
you know, a lot of LPs I did sell, and that was one of them. I should have kept it.
I went through that phase too. I've sold a lot of stuff, and probably more in recent years, actually. That you regret later on, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, and now you have to go back and get all these albums, you know, that you want.
Yeah.
I know. One thing I always kind of remember the vocalist doing. He's always doing that, like na 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 na, right? Just
Yeah.
just full on, right? And yeah, so Chad, if you want to take her away with your next pick.
Next one is from another one from '88, actually.
Oh,
Crimson Glory, Transcendence.
excellent
Sensational album. Yeah.
Excellent album, yes.
The
And that's
vocals
been
on this, Midnight's vocals on this thing is just phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
high, like super high.
May you rest in peace.
Yeah, piercing. They're like piercing. You know, they're piercing vocals. You know, but they're like they're not distasteful or anything like that. They're just great.
No,
You
great
know,
cover as well, yeah. Awesome.
yeah.
I'm surprised
And,
you picked the first one, the first Crimson Glory.
Oh yeah, you know, it's another toss-up, a bit like the Halloween one.
You know,
do I
Crimson
pick
Glory,
this one or the original self-titled?
yeah. Crimson Glory sounded to me like Queensryche. Had that Queensryche sort of vibe, didn't it?
Yeah,
Almost, yeah. Very Queensryche.
yeah. But I mean, this is another one of those albums I just play all the way through all the time. There's just nothing for me. There's nothing that's filler or anything like that.
No, it's a great album. And their second album is also good. I can't remember the title of their second album, but I think they only released two albums.
This is the second album.
Oh, the first one and this one, and that was the last album, wasn't it? Just the two albums.
Then you had then you had a terrible one after this. Strange and Beautiful.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's nothing like any of the other first two. Nothing like it. If you're going to listen to any, and then they had a fourth album called. I was trying to think of it now.
Astronomica.
Yeah, I can't think of their fourth album, but that if you're going to listen to that one, more of a later one.
And I was going to say, like, doesn't that one kind of start giving you hints that a bit of that progression that they were going to do on that third album, on that Strange and Beautiful album? Because I know that Strange and Beautiful album was quite kind of progressive and experimental, so to speak, in spots, and you know, it's again, you did kind of say it was like crappy or sucks or whatever, but I think even on that second album they did start incorporating a bit more kind of progression, a little bit.
Yeah, because the first album is more straight ahead. It's more straight ahead, sort of power metal, sort of heavy metal type stuff. Whereas this one's a bit more, a few more elements, more progressive, slight progressive elements in it. But even that ballad that they did a video for, that Lonely, you know, that's still, even though it's a ballad, you know, power ballad, it's a great song.
Yeah.
Catchy. So that's Crimson Glory, Transcendence.
And then to touch on, you were trying to remember the name of the fourth album. I believe the fourth album without Midnight was called Astronomica.
That's it, with Wade. I'm trying to think of the vocalist there. Wade Black. Can't remember.
And it's might be sacrilege to say, but that's one hell of an album, actually. I'd actually probably prefer Astronomica over those last two ones with Midnight. It's
a good album for sure.
Really good. I had it in one of my carts one time. I was going to buy it, but it never panned out. But That is an
Yep.
incredible album. If people never check that out, I definitely recommend it. It is really good. If you can get over the fact that Midnight wasn't a part of it, and I know there was some drama going on where he wanted to be a part of it, or something was going on, and his health issues couldn't let him, or
Yeah,
something
it was
like that. And
huge.
they had to bring in another guy, but that other guy that replaced him, he was a talented guy. That was a good album.
No, nothing wrong with it. That's for sure.
All right, cool. And then Frederick, if you want to go up next here.
Okay, I'm going into the same vein as Attacker, but the band I'm going to show is Omen,
Oh,
Yes. Okay.
Battle
Yep.
Cry. This is probably one of probably the earliest power metal albums, I would say. This is just a great sort of it's epic power metal. If you like, epic, sort of Man of War-ish, fist in the air, pumping metal. And the vocalist J.D. Kimball, may he rest in peace, a great vocalist. Also with those high-pitched vocals, and this is a reissue, not an original, but it is just a great album. It's got some great songs like Death Rider, Be My Wedge, Into the Arena. Really sort of the power metal themes. Sort of the as you can see by the cover.
Yeah.
What you see on the cover is what you get in this record. The other two albums, also great albums, but I really like the debut. This is just great sort of US metal with power metal, and has tinges of speed metal in there as well. So, Omen, if you haven't got this,
that's a great pick. That's a good pick for sure.
Good pick.
And it's very very similar to Attacker. That same sort of style of power metal. And this band is still going. I heard their new stuff. The new stuff is not as good, but this early stuff is the bee's knees.
That's definitely one of those album covers too, where you look at it and you know what you're getting yourself into for sure.
Yeah, you got the skeleton warriors slaughtering, sort of,
the full battle scene there.
Yeah, great battle scene. Great battle scene, and I love the back cover with the guy hanging. It's very is it to one of Satan's albums covers. The hanging. So this is just a great album. If you haven't heard it, go and listen to it. It's just pure US power metal. Excellent band.
And they were a little more, well, obviously with their first album, they were probably a little more rawish on that album there too.
Yes, yeah, yep. They were raw. Even their second album is a little bit raw, but a bit polished as well. And their third album was much more polished. So this is like a really really early Metal Blade release, and a lot of their releases were quite raw at the time. So yeah, just a great band.
And I believe that was 84. Was that 84, 85?
84, I think it's 84.
I've got glasses and I can't see because the font is in red and it's on a it's the worst font on the vinyl, but I think it was 84. Yes.
Well, I'm actually kind of glad that came up because I did have this as an honorable mention.
Oh yes, yeah.
That's a great album too.
Yeah. And I was listening to this early, and I was like, "Oh, this is definitely power metal." And I know, well, even the album after would be power metal, even though they're kind of
with Cobalt Bar on vocals.
Yeah, the Warning to Danger, and then the album after they probably were getting into low one.
More thrashy on it.
Like I know that I think it's they have an 89 album, Nowhere to Nothing or Nothing to Nowhere or something.
Yeah, that was more fresh.
Oh, okay. Well, I viewed it as something different. They kind of really stepped their back and kind of did a lot more melody, kind of glammy stuff, because obviously glam would have been super big in the 80s, and I think they were trying to. I think they were trying to.
Bandwagon.
I think they were trying to come back and trying to get a hit song and things like that. But I still jam. I jam now and occasionally for work tunes, the stuff that I can't have super extreme stuff going. But I did have Omen as as a honorable mention. So I might as well figured, hey, you're showing your own, and I might as well just get that out of the way.
Yeah, no, they're a great band. I really, they're underrated too, band I think as well.
Absolutely, and I guess we'll kind of tail it off to my next pick, and there is no way I was leaving this out of my top 5. I knew as soon as I was talking about the show and starting to book it or whatever, I knew right away Vicious Rumors Digital Dictator was going to be on this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Metal.
this is one hell of an album. This is my favorite Vicious Rumors, and yeah, I just had no question or doubts that this was making my list. It's just really cool. You got a little power, lightning strike there coming down the middle there, but
almost looking glammy now in photos.
Yeah, I'd say like some of the song titles aren't really fantasy per se, but they're definitely power metal in terms of like fist pumping, raise your U.S. American power metal, and I'd say they probably were kind of just a blend of just kind of slight thrash, slight speed, but they kind of just blended everything perfect between thrash, speed, and power, and just heavy metal, and just kind of blended it all just perfectly. No, I believe it's their second, or I think this is their.
I had their first one as a
Price Killer. Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
I had their first one as the honorable mention.
Right, and I also see every band's first album is a little more raw, and then as they got record deals, they got more money to produce it, and I think that's when Vicious Rumors really banged through with the production. Like this is a really great production, sound, and mix. If you play it on a sound system with bass, like it's full on. It's going to hit you hard there, kind of with the hammers. And I don't want to touch too much on my hammer description because I really got an album in here where I think it really hits you hard like a hammer. So I'll get to that one when I get to that one. But yeah, absolutely my favorite Vicious Rumors album. I don't think there's really anything else in the booklet I'd show.
I mean, the guitar work, Jeff Thorpe, and Mark McKee. I mean, those guys are they're amazing guitar players. They're very underrated, I think, especially Jeff Thorpe.
One band I haven't really delved into, don't have any of their albums, but I have heard bits and pieces, like the first album that you showed, Chad. The more thrashy sort of side of Vicious Rumors. But I do know they have a new album out as well, which is I heard is quite progressive.
Yeah,
as well.
Still going. They're still going. Yeah.
Yeah, still going.
And then they still kept up a fairly hoppy, fasty kind of sound. Like they totally didn't kind of sell out, so to speak. So they were still kind of kept up a fairly fast pace on some of those newer albums, although I'm not super familiar with it, but I have kind of checked them out casually, and I was like, okay, they're still keeping up that kind of up-tempo stuff.
Yeah, and the vocalist Carl Albert's no longer with us either. Rest in peace.
Yeah, no, he died, but a few years ago.
Yep.
All right, cool. And Chad, if you want to go up next with your next pick.
What do I have next? We've got Running Wild. I've picked Under Jolly Roger. You could probably pick a number of the albums from the 80s, but I've gone with Under Jolly Roger. 86.
Great album.
Yeah. Great album. It's basically this was my introduction to Running Wild, actually. So I know there's probably better albums than this one, but this one just really was always stuck with me. It's obviously their first embark into the pirate sort of themes. But a great album. The title track, Raw Ride, Raise Your Fist, Diamonds the Black Chest. Yeah. Good stuff.
Great album. Yeah, good pick, Chad. Good pick. I was going to pick that album too, but I thought somebody else will pick a Running Wild.
There you go. And it's because obviously we mentioned they had their first two albums that were a bit more of the old, the satanic themes and stuff like that, and he obviously decided to change it up a bit. Rolf, and And the thing is, they get known for their pirate, their pirate metal or whatever you want to call it, but they're not always
pirate songs.
Piratey, it's
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's Running Wild under Jolly Roger, 86.
Yeah, great album. Good pick. I really like that album a lot
Yeah,
too.
definitely good pick. And when I was talking to somebody here before the show about the show that we were going to be doing, and he kind of just gave me his 5 picks, so to speak, just online over Facebook Messenger, and I showed him my stack that I had, and I had to dwindle that down to 5, and he noticed that I didn't have any Running Wild in there, and I did have to explain myself where I'm like, I kind of agree to disagree, where I would kind of just view Running Wild more of a general speed metal band. I don't know what your guys' opinions on that, but I actually left Running Wild out of my list or out of my thing here, just because if I ever anticipate doing a speed metal show or whatever, that's when I would show my love for Running Wild, because don't get me wrong, I freaking love Running Wild. I have every Running Wild. I have just a stack of Running Wild.
Yep.
So I do love Running Wild. They are one of my favorite bands, but I think generally I kind of more put them in a speed category.
Well, yeah, I agree too. Like the first 2 records were just pure speed metal. The third album under Johnny Roger had that speed metal elements, but their next album, Port Royale, was starting to get into more of the power. I think more power, but still had that speed metal. But I would still consider Running Wild as a speed metal band, not a pure power metal band.
Yep.
Well,
they do have the elements though of power metal.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Obviously with the fantasy themes and pirate, but I think it does get a little blurred because it's so widely known that they are a pirate metal band. So if you were to kind of like pirate metal isn't really a genre. I guess it is now, but back then it wasn't.
It was unique. Like Fred was going through unique albums. That would be a unique album for its time.
Innovative.
Yeah, innovative. Yeah.
Yeah, because back then pirate metal didn't exist per se, so how people were classing them back then was probably a mix of power, speed for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you there, Jamie.
And no, I kind of just hope to do a speed metal show at one point, 80 speed, 90 speed, and at that point I would confess my love for Running Wild during that show. So
I've got tons of speed metal. That's the genre that really gets to my heart, speed metal.
I'm certainly. Oh, sorry to cut you off, but sorry there, but I'm super glad that Running Wild did show up on the list here, because I certainly love Running Wild, and anytime we can talk about Running Wild or kind of pump them up, or maybe let them be known to people that don't know them, obviously that's a great pick, and I super appreciate that Running Wild does show up here, and we get to touch on Running Wild there for a bit. And so Frederick, if you want to go up next.
Okay, this one might be a little bit controversial, but the band I want to talk about is Lizzie Borden.
Oh
yeah.
Nice. This band, started out with their EP with very much power metal, sort of the horror theme, like Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
But a bit more heavier. Some people would call them glam, but I wouldn't call them glam at all.
No, they're not really a glam band.
Right. But the look there does look glammy, but they're not glam. They're shock rockers. I think of their influences are with Kiss and Alice Cooper and those sort of bands. But this is a great album too. Great songs, but they're not your typical power metal song themes. You got Ultraviolence, Terror of My Town, Bloody Mary, Menace to Society. It's more, antisocial, social type of lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Very raw, a little bit raw sounding, but this is a reissue, which has been cleaned up, and it's just a great band. I love Lizzie Borden. Their first EP, Give 'Em the Axe, was a great power metal. Love You to Pieces was another great power metal. Menace to Society. The fourth one, I can't. Blessing. I think something this.
Master of Disguise.
Yeah, it was very much more. But they're getting into the more of the power metal theme on that record. But this is not just US heavy metal, basically, with power metal added to it. Sorry about the glare.
Yeah, good pick. And vocally, he is power metal. Like, he is a high-pitched vocally. He's talented. And I say that vocal-wise, that's definitely power metal for sure.
Yeah,
well,
it's power metal-ish, yeah. I think his new one is a bit more power metal. The latest Lizzie Borden. But, you know, he's associated with power metal because, you know, it's power glam. You
right.
Call it, but I wouldn't call it glam at all. I'll just call it just power metal as straightforward power metal.
Like, yeah, when you were reading off the song titles and you said Bloody Mary, I just had that kind of the
Alice Cooper,
the high pitched chorus that he's doing. You know, the Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
Right, and that's totally like Raise Your Fist, U.S. kind of.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a different pick, and it's funny the term you just coined there, glam power. maybe Wasp could fall under, maybe Wasp could fall under as well. Obviously with the pop rock kind of.
It's sort of like it's not really cock rock, but you know it's just US metal with power.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Obviously, yeah. I'm just trying to think of that Bloody Mary song. Like, he's going for it. That could be like, you know, kind of like a Sabotage, pump your fist sort of thing.
Yeah. I agree.
Very consistent band too. All their albums are great. They're not. There's nothing. There's no.
Not one bad album. No.
Well, I'm not a big fan of that Master of Disguise album. I don't know. That's
I love that. I love that album. I think it's a great album. It's like the Sabotage Street sort of same vibe as that album.
Yeah.
I'd have to revisit that album, but I remember trying to get into that album numerous times, and like
it can be
like 6 of the songs are all slow. Like all like kind of dramatically slow. I'm like,
it's like a. Have you heard Sabotage Street? It's sort of that sort of vein, very slow, very operatic, you know, bombastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that album. That's a great album.
I'd say it's probably almost. It's a bit. I would have thought it might be a bit more poppy. It's probably maybe the word. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I like all of Lizzie Borden stuff, so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, what's your pick?
Absolutely. I kind of do some in-show shuffles because I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm doing the same.
Yeah, me too.
I did just mention the band, but I'm just going to wait to see if anyone else did bring it up. I did just bring it up as an example of some, you know, U.S. Raise Your Fist stuff. So I'm just going to hold off on that to see if anyone else does touch on it. I'm assuming they are going to touch. We're going to get to that, but I'll save that for a little later. So I guess I will go up with this. Kind of really reminds me. It is very similar to Attacker, where the vocals are really high pitched, but the first Sacred Oath album here, Crystal Vision. I believe this is 1987, and the singer was Rob Thorne, and he's a talented guy. And again, he is hitting really high pitchy type vocals, stuff that, you know, people can't even do now. Well, they can, but just not really high pitchy like it was in the 80s. And it's just an all around good quality power metal album, and there is a bit of speed factor. A lot of this cool, good not obscure, but good power metal was kind of touching into that speed. So they were speedy and just all around talented musicians. Like they definitely knew what they were doing, and it's good production. It's not like hokey pokey, low budget stuff here. So they had everything working for them here, and even just going by some of the song titles, you know what you're getting yourself into here. The Two Powers, The Ferryman's Lair, Rising from the Grave, Magic Sun, The Omen, A Crystal Vision. So a lot of those tracks are kind of in that fantasy realm, so you kind of just know what you're getting yourself into. And I believe this is sort of like an original cover. They did slightly change it. I know the original one in '87, like maybe some people at home do have the original release. The Crystal Vision was just a little darker. The image was, it's pretty well the same, but obviously this is a reissue on Digipack, these stupid thin Digipacks, but...
yeah, they're really overdoing those Digipack these days, aren't they?
That Sentinel Steele?
But then you get a cool little band shot back here, but I really dig this album. I did actually have this higher up than some of the other albums that we're going to touch on here. Like some honorable mentions, I have like some Jack Starr in here, Virgin Steel, Nasty Savage, but I actually find myself listening to this more than some of that other stuff. So this is a really high up album for me, enough to have it in my top 8.
The album you just showed now, I tried to look to buy a copy. It's very hard to get, and it's very, very pricey.
Wow. Yeah, I think that for whatever reason, this band is still fairly well unknown. Like I know when I'm listening to it and I take pictures for the group, the 80s groups and things like that, and post it, it's just nobody ever knows anything about it, really. And
I've only seen a couple of times on the YouTube channel. Like there's another channel, Let's Talk Metal, Alan from the US showed that album, and I've only seen that twice now. Him and yourself showed that album. It's.
Yeah, no, I wasn't.
I've never heard of them. I haven't actually heard the music. I've heard of them, but I haven't heard the music.
Yeah, same here. I haven't heard the music, but I've heard of them.
Yeah, and I was never really sure why no one anybody heard of it, because they were US, they would have been 87, and then they weren't just a one and done guys. Like Rob Thorne did come out in the 90s and put out a bunch of cool albums, and I actually have some other Sacred Oaths, and yeah, I actually have like 3 or 4 of them, and even some of the later stuff was good. That he was coming out in the 90s, 2000s, and he still kind of kept up that speedy aspect to it, speedy power. And yeah, I kind of just view Rob Thorne as a pretty talented guy. Obviously, some of the later 90s ones that he was doing, he pretty well was writing most of the stuff just himself. And then he started his own record label called Angel Thorne Music Company. So rather than opposed to, putting the stuff on other labels, he just started his own thing. So he had all the copyrights to his own name,
Yeah.
Angel Thorne Music Company. And yeah, some of the later albums are good too.
Like as an album that I really want to get into my collection.
Cool.
So look into it.
Yeah, I'd check that one out. If no one's ever heard that, viewers watching at home, that's a good one. I'm not really sure why it's so unknown, because they were U.S., so it's not like some obscure like Ukraine Polish band or something, So they would have been touring with some of those bands back in the day. They probably opened up for a bunch of highly known bands back then. So I'm not sure why it did just kind of get thrown away or under the rug, tossed under the rug, is the term I was looking for, right? So
yeah, a lot of them bands did in those days. A lot of those sort of power metals did get stuck under the rug. They're obscure, that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah,
it's good that people are showing these obscure power metal albums. It's.
Yeah, I think we're gonna probably even get some even more obscure. Well, maybe not obscure, but just certainly not like household name brands. Even though I guess there wasn't a whole lot of household pure power metal bands. I know there is a big pure bass power metal band that I'm gonna assume is going to get brought up, and that one I'm kind of shuffling, hoping someone else brings it up. But if not, I'm definitely.
I think I know which band you're talking about. Actually,
I did already mention them on the thing, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So, Chad, if you want to go up next here.
Yep. The next one, this band's from Norway.
Wow.
Arch.
That's
Another return.
Album.
It is, isn't it?
That is a great album. Again, it has that speed metal element to it as well.
Yep. They the vocalist is a bit of a mix between sort of Bruce Dickinson and I don't know Dio. It's he's fantastic.
Great album.
Yeah, great album.
Even the second album is great too. Have you heard the second
Yep.
album?
Yeah, I got the second album. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great, very sort of that band is very underrated as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, not a lot of people have heard of Arch. It's just reissued on Dive Bomb Records.
Okay.
Probably was that 2015. So this album's from
Shout out to
1988.
Matt Divebomb. Sorry. Shout out to Matt Divebomb there.
I'll be back.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, the Dive Bomb did great reissues, man. Yeah. But yeah, 1988, originally on I think Metal Blade Records. It was originally, yep. And great tracks on this is another return to Churchill. Where I Go is a great power ballad. Metal Life, The Promised Land, Shoot to Kill, Living in the Past. Great tracks. And the riffage is almost, it's like Fred said, it's it gets into that speed metal. There we go, beautiful. Another return to Churchill, yeah.
I think this was the original title, I think, or
I think so, yeah. Because they got the song Another Return to Churchill on the actual album.
Yeah. The second track. Yeah, this is a great album.
Oh, this one's I'd highly recommend this one. It's great.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a funny song called "Power to the Man," which is probably not really PC, but probably the funny song, not funny song, but it's a different song on this one. But they're just all great tracks, though.
I think this band is still active. To my knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's Arch, Another Return from '88.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them too, and I know at one point I was going to buy their second album. I believe it's called Sins of Mankind, and
yes,
that's
correct.
Just removed from the '80s. I think Sins of Mankind is '91, and I know that album specifically kind of goes a bit more proggy, I'd say, and some kind of aspects.
It's different. It's different from the first one, that's for sure. I mean, it's three years between them, the albums, so.
And then, obviously that second would have been going into the '90s, and then a little removed from the pure thrash and speed era sort of thing. So I think
the music industry started to change.
They were touching into a little bit more progressive metal, but I still dig that second album too. I was going to buy it. I don't have it, but I'm familiar with Arch, and that first one is kind of more raw and speedy and kind of more powery sort of thing. So. That's definitely a great pick. I'm sure not a lot of people have heard of that. So if you can get your hands on some Arch, do that.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
All right, cool. Frederick, if you want to go up next here.
Okay, I've got another obscure band in the power metal scene. I don't think anybody has heard this band before, but the band is Man of War.
Obscure.
Again, US power metal, with the fantasy themes. This was I believe their third album, released in '87. I love the cover work. It just reminds me of the Destroy Kiss LP.
Yes, yeah.
Very, very similar. But this is just pure fist pounding, metal, just really gets up there and go metal.
Heavy Metal Rules album.
Yeah, Flying the World, then, Blow Your Speakers, which is a sort of a takeoff, by people who are not playing their music on radio or TV, big FU sort of thing, song to radio and TV.
Yep.
You got Drums of Doom, Holy War, Black Wind, Fire and Steel. Every song on this album is great, and all their albums I think are awesome. There has been some controversy with this band with one of the members, which we won't talk about, but but it's just all about the music, really. And this is a great power metal album. I think that their first album was a bit more rockier.
Mhm.
I think Under the Sign was more rockier. Their second album started to get into that power, but this was where they got into the more of the power sort of speed metal. This is more power metal, fist pounding. So Man of War. If you haven't heard of them, go check them out because they are very very underrated and very obscure band.
I'd have to assume anybody watching, if they can just know what the term heavy metal is, they probably have heard of Manowar at some point.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I was that band you were thinking of before you were going to show.
Oh,
Was it?
yeah. I'm not the hugest power Manowar fan. I do have like a little 3 CD box set.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's not something I kind of get into on a weekly or monthly basis. It'd probably be once in a while. But, that is your prototypical power band in the 80s for sure. That were just kind of going all out with the power metal, basically.
Yeah.
Just like full on, like outlandish, super outlandish, right? It's kind of like, how can they shock you with being out over the top power metal?
Yeah.
I think the cheese element keeps people away from that band sometimes, or a lot of the time, I should say.
Right, yeah.
I think Joey. I think it's Joey DiMaio sort of band. I think he puts a lot of the cheese into it. Now he's the head man of the band, so.
That one there is probably one of their more serious albums, and the one before, and kind of the one after, and then
it is a more serious.
And then they kind of flip flop in between the cheese and kind of whatever.
Yeah,
but
I think this album they were trying to break out, from the underground and get into the more of the mainstream, trying to get on the radio, and but with the song, like I said, blow your speakers. Radio and TV wouldn't play this band because they deemed them too heavy, But it is what it is. But
it's what it is. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, cool. I guess I'm up, and actually, this is that's kind of cool that this lines up next for me because this kind of tails off with your super outlandish power metal band with the Manowar. And before I do show it, I want to touch on that. I think this guy deserves a lot more credit and respect that he does get. I know a lot of people think of his stage antics that he would do on when he'd have the bar and he'd bend it with his teeth.
I know who you're thinking of, Thor.
Right. So I think a lot of people do kind of categorize him in that, like they just thought he was like a gimmick guy, but to be honest, I really love Thor's songwriting and actual songs, and actual removed from the gimmick, like take the whole gimmick out of it, and you were to just listen to the music and not know what he's doing on stage. Who cares about that? The actual music and songs are great. I think Thor is a great songwriter. All his songs are catchy. Again, if you are listening to power metal, that's what you kind of want. Is these? I love that.
Great cover.
I love that Unchained EP. That Unchained EP. I'd love to have that. That's great.
And this is an original pressing on Ultra Noise Records. And this was one of his latest ones.
Yeah.
Metal Avenger.
It's almost much like Power Manowar, where people kind of threw it under the rug because they seen the videos and they seen the gimmick that he was doing. But again, to actually just remove the gimmick part and just listen to the music. This guy is a good songwriter. Like he knew how to build just your bass, like sing and then chorus, sing chorus. Like he knew how to actually build like a good song. Like he wasn't a bad songwriter. So I think he actually deserves more credit. And then also touching on starting, like his first album, Keep the Dogs Away, was 1977.
Yeah, that was proto metal, wasn't it? Sort of proto metal.
Yeah, and like to think, Rainbows Rising was 1978, so Thor actually came out like a year before that. He wasn't in the pure power metal because like
No,
metal.
it was 70s rock. Yeah.
Like yeah, and that '70s rock, obviously heavy metal hadn't hit its stride, and thrash wasn't out yet, so it wasn't like full on metal. But I think he does deserve some credit because yeah, his first album was 1977, and then yeah, I think he definitely deserves some more credit. So without it, and again, I do love this album. This definitely had to make my top 5 because I think all these songs are catchy, great. There's like no skippers on his albums per se. Yeah, I love them all. And then obviously you do watch the old music videos, and those are super fun old music videos.
Yeah.
Or anytime, or he'd show up on shows and do a little interview, and then do his whole gimmick for the TV show, and it's just super fun stuff to go back and watch on. I know it'd show up on like worst videos of all time, but I think it's some of the coolest videos of all time.
Yeah, I was watching a documentary called I Am Thor. Have you ever seen that documentary?
No.
Oh, it's about Thor's start of his metal. Like from his early days when he was a stripper, right up to modern day Thor. And yes, he's just got a great, sort of. He's a very upfront person. He loves his fans. He's I never met him, but what I saw that he loves his fans. He appreciates his fans. And he's also got so many vinyl CDs or LPs out. His catalog is huge. It's a huge catalog. And
then I will mention I am from Canada, and then Thor is from Canada. Here he was from Vancouver, and
that cover was this one, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and yeah, he is from Vancouver, so early innovator and power metal, heavy metal wave. Like he was in it early.
Maybe were there many power metals coming out of Canada in the 80s, or not really?
Again, I didn't grow up in the scene, so it's not like I would have been going to the clubs back in the 80s, but I'm sure there was, here and there bands, just like every scene had their genre bands, right? There probably would be 3 or 4 thrashers, 3 or 4 speeders, 3 or 4 power metal bands, right? And then they would all do shows and create your own little local scene per se, right?
Yeah, because I got one, I think glam metal band called Reckless out of Canada.
Oh wow, I didn't even know they were Canadian. I'm familiar with the name, but I didn't know they were Canadian.
Yeah, which is not power metal, but it's more glammy sort of. But it's a good album, good band from Canada, very underrated band. But we're talking about power metal here, so.
Yeah, I think Thor deserves more credit because I think a lot of people just think
he does.
A gimmick guy, and they kind of laugh at the music videos and the things that he was doing with the gimmicks. But if you were just listening to the music, I think they're great songs, super catchy songs.
Yeah, the debut, EP, it's really shows his talents in his songwriting, and great band. I do love his wife, Pantera. Doing backup vocals, but yeah, you're right. Thor is very underrated. He needs to be bigger than he is.
Yeah, just people just need to actually listen just to the music, and again, maybe
don't look at the gimmick.
I actually probably do understand where some people actually think maybe the music is too simple, like they want to hear more speed or more thrash or there's more things going on. But I think Thor is one of those things where the term less is more. Like, just do your regular, say your little sentence or your paragraph. Do a nice chorus, paragraph, nice chorus, build a nice song. Sometimes less is more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, cool. So we'll go up with Chad's next pick here.
Got to come up.
I was going to show that album, but I thought that was a bit more speed metal.
Yeah, probably is. But it's hard to talk about power metal, and you can't not talk about Blind Guardian.
True.
Yeah, I mean, Majesty is probably my favorite Blind Guardian song of all time. Really, it's great track opener with the circus sort of music starting off there. But yeah, it's a great album.
The debut,
And then, like you said, it is pretty. It's fast.
Yeah, I think the first one would be more faster, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, that's your debut, wouldn't it? Debut, the one.
Yeah, debut. Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, Follow the Blind was the second one.
That was a bit more speed metal too.
I've never actually seen that back because the back of my CD is just totally different. I've never seen the original back.
Yeah, no, it's not. This is a repress. This is a repress, recent repress.
Yeah, I think that's been 3 times repressed. I think the album.
I think so. Yeah. I've got it on. I've got the CD. I've got the new repressed CD, and the CD comes with like the it comes with the remixed version and the original.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. So yeah, Blind Guardian, Battalions of Fear. It's probably one of those bands. I mean, his vocals aren't high or anything, obviously, Hansi Kirch. So it's more of a mid-range sort of I wouldn't say it's a scream, but it's more of a talk sort of. Yeah, it's hard to describe. He's got a very unique style.
I was going to show another band that he was in, but I thought it's a bit too later on. You know what I'm talking?
Yeah. Demons and Wizards.
Yeah.
I figured Blind Guardian was going to show up here on the show, and even though I kind of figured that they would show up on the show, or Blind Guardian would be more mainstream, so to speak, you cannot deny that even those first 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 4 or 5, 6 Blind Guardians, you cannot, you can't not touch on those. So it's obviously a great pick, and I did have that in my honorable mentions. So it's great that the honorable mentions do just get picked, because then less honorable mentions.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, no, absolutely, that's an incredible album. It's one of those, and you did say it's more speedy. So this is European speed power. I think Halloween was before them, but they are still a top tier band.
Right? No, I think Blind Guardian would have been first. I think.
Really?
Because
probably if you're talking about when they formed and things like that, probably maybe before the albums. I don't know.
Oh wow. I always viewed that album.
Don't quote me on that, but
I mean, that's 88, so it's the same year as Keepers too.
Well, Halloween had like the EP and then the Walls of Jericho thing. So
Walls of Jericho in 85.
So they were a couple of years before. So I think more or less they were probably they obviously would have known who Halloween was. And
yeah, I think they've toured probably together.
Right.
Or another, back then in the 80s.
But that's definitely that prototypical speed power, where European speed power and Blind Guardian, Halloween. So I knew those bands, or I'd hope those bands were going to show up. If not, we'd obviously would touch on it anyway. So that's great that we did touch on that. Great albums, and then even someone could have picked the album after what's the album after?
Follow
the Blind. Yeah.
Well, Follow the Blind, is it? Yeah, I got those first couple Blind Guardians as well. And Frederic, if you want to go up next here.
Okay, I've got another obscure band. That band is Iced Earth, more US power metal. This is the box set.
That has the first EP on it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the first, Purgatory, and actually Purgatory have reformed actually as well. They've got a brand new EP released last year with the same vocalist and band lined up. So Blind Guard, any Iced Earth in the 80s was just pure power metal. Just great riffing, vocalist. But I think Matt Barlow would be my favorite vocalist on with Iced Earth. So again, this is sort of your power metal. You got your power metal themes, and very similar to I would say this band would be to Judas Priest, a bit of Iron Maiden, Kiss, because they do have a covers CD on here, which It's got Kiss, Blue Oyster Cult, Alice Cooper tracks, Black Sabbath. So they do cover the really sort of early bands, but they do it in a sort of power metal, speed metal way. Iced Earth, you know, you can't.
So they,
yeah,
they're. I mean, I think the first EP, the Purgatory EP. That's 80.
That's the first one. Yeah, Enter the Realm.
Yeah, that was 80. I think that's 89, isn't it? I think. It was just in the 80s.
Their first self-titled was 1990, but
90,
I think
that
EP would be, I think, even though the EP.
I think it was their demo. It was their demo. So about in 89, probably around about there. They probably got signed to later on after that. But you know, this is a band that's very influential on a lot of power metal, probably in the Greek scene, because they're very big in Greece.
Yeah.
And, you know, so a lot of the Greek sort of early power metal bands were influenced by this band. So yeah, Iced Earth, I think very influential. Forget about the politics that the guitarist is in. It's all about the music. You know, so Iced Earth.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when that all happened. I think when that all happened, people just like I think a similar thing happened with the Black album. When Metallica Black album came out, all the purists just like, when they bought it, they went and listened to it, and they just set it on fire, threw it in the trash. I think that's what happened.
That's what I did with the Metallica Black album. I threw it away. I thought,
right.
I
think Iced Earth had that little phase there last couple of years when that happened.
I don't think Iced Earth will ever get their reputation back again because of that incident back in the States. I think that they've lost a lot of fans now, and I don't really think that they could ever get back to where they were.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans fans that were involved in politics and things like that, they probably went home and threw all their Iced Earth and burned them. But actually, I did want to touch on the original singer. I thought the original singer was actually really unique. He had his own flair, his own style, everything.
Yeah, they've had four different vocalists in their history. You know, it's a rolling door of vocalists, but every vocalist is unique to their sound. You know, like Stu, the last vocalist, was very good as well, and he left the band because of the politics. Iced Earth is one of those essential bands that need to be recognised in the power metal scene.
Yeah, and I was going to say actually also when you were talking is that would be like your the next wave of power, right? Because that's kind of leading into that's 90s basically, and so that's like the next wave. Like thrash is dying, so to speak, or not dying, but thrash is kind of trending away. And then obviously the glam scene was kind of, people were getting sick of the glam scene, and then
death metal was coming out in that time.
And then people were sticking into metal. And then I think that Iced Earth was carrying the torch for the next wave of power metal. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And I really dig that first vocalist. I know some people, I guess, obviously Matt Barlow is a big name, and people probably prefer the Matt Barlow era the most.
What was the first guy's name?
That first singer was, he was
Stu, I think it's Stu as well, I think.
What was his name? Fuck, I got it here in this book. Wait a second. What was his name? Come on, where is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't know his name off the top of my head, but those are cool when you listen back and you listen to Colors.
Gene Adam. Gene Adam was the first voice.
Cool.
Well, and even some of the songs on the first album got re-released or retitled on the second album, something like that. I don't know. Like,
no, I don't know.
They reworked the stuff. They reworked a couple song titles for the album that just came right after.
Because they have had their first album was Iced Earth, and then they did Night of the Stormbringer, which was their second album. And then Matt Barlow came in onto Burnt Offerings, which was more of the Dante's Inferno sort of epic power metal.
Yep.
Yeah, cool stuff. We got our loving for Iced Earth there, and I just had this out of my top 5, but then when I was listening to it, I'm like, oh man, how the hell am I going to keep this out of my top 5? Because Hellstar was on fire in the 80s, just putting out albums, and I would have to touch on the very first Hellstar album.
Yeah.
There you go, you got it, we got it. Yeah, and obviously the singer was super talented, all the musicians were talented. This is like
James Rivera, excellent vocalist.
Yeah, great band.
Like this could actually almost could have put into a speed show or a speed out. I'd say actually Hellstar is generally more speed, but obviously a lot of the song titles and things like that are fantasy and things like that. I was going to show, and it actually was interesting when I did get this reissue, re-release sort of thing. I actually went on Discogs and I looked at, well, what was the original album cover? And it's one of those interesting things where...
Yeah, I think it's this one here.
Well, actually, both are original. So in like UK...
country.
In UK, yeah, depending on the country. So in I think in Germany, it was this album cover, but then when they released it in the States, it was this one. So... Yeah. And both on the same year, which I always thought is interesting and weird when they put out a different album cover depending on the country you were, because it kind of makes it a little confusing when you look back. But I don't know, maybe it was a thing back in the day where you'd release an album cover for a country.
That was like the Sabotage album, Sirens. There was two covers.
Yeah.
You know, the one with the ship on it, which was the original cover. And then the one after the follow the other one was the Little Dwarf Children, so it's sort of, I don't know why they changed covers, but like with Hellstar, I don't know why two different covers.
I think a lot of it depends on the market. They're trying to appeal to. Depends on what the local market conditions are and what they think would sell.
Jamie, speaking of this album, what do you think? Do you prefer the original album or the demo versions?
Things like that. I would definitely probably just go with the album. I know a lot of the demos and like bonus tracks and things like that. I kind of just
for me, I think the demos are more heavier, more faster than the actual album.
Oh wow!
I think they toned down on the album release. So when I listen to this album, I go for the more speed metal aspects, which is the demo, which is more faster. But I think when they released it, it was more the bit toned down for my taste. But it's still a great album, Texas finest speed metal, as it says on the hype sticker.
Yeah. Oh, I've never seen the hype sticker. That's cool. Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
mine doesn't have the hype sticker or nothing like that. So.
Yeah, so this is a band that's very mixed in styles. It's the power metal, and they do the speed metal. Yeah,
that's actually pretty well a perfect blend, just like the Vicious Rumors, where. Yeah. They're blending a couple different genres and just blending it just perfect. And I think Hellstar was on fire in the 80s. I think they had four albums in the 80s, and they were just on fire. Every album's incredible. There's basically no skipper songs between every album. And I know I got a little worked up here a couple weeks ago in one of the groups I'm in, one of the 80s Uncensored group or something like that. One of the guys made a post about kind of just all mainstream bands that released albums in the 80s. And I was like, hey, Hellstar released 4 or 5 incredible albums in the 80s. He's like, oh, I don't care about that trash. I'm like, wait, what? Trash? And I just couldn't believe that. I was like, he's clearly one of those Mr. Know-it-all guys where he thinks he knows it all,
Yeah.
but he doesn't. And
Yeah.
Hellstar was quite early too.
Well,
I-
it's not me.
I work
I don't
on-
know everything about metal, but what I do know is what I like.
Well, it just seems strange to me. Like, if you like Slayer and Iron Maiden, how could you call this trash? Makes no sense.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch. I understand people not liking it, but didn't call it trash is a different story.
And the vocalist James Rivera is an absolute belter
Yeah.
of a vocalist. Have you heard his other projects like Destiny's End and? You haven't heard this? Also, very like Hellstar, Destiny's End. Very power metal, very heavy. It was released on Metal Blade Records, but under Johnny Roger did a reissue of both the first and second album by Destiny's End. Really great power metal.
Satan knows
Yeah.
stuff. Oh yeah, cool. But and then I forgot what I was going to say, but I know you were touching on side bands and things like that. I know he did try to start this vigilante band. There was a vigilante.
Yeah, he was also in Malice. Remember the band Malice out of the USA?
Yeah.
He did vocals for them for one album. Some don't. So he's done a lot of stuff, and he's very, very underrated vocalist. He needs more.
Yeah.
He needs more prop. He needs to be up there with the Halfords and the Jeff Tates, and he's just a great vocalist. Very high pitched vocals, sort of like King Diamishy, that sort of style. But it's great. Hellstar's awesome band. Great pick there, Jamie.
Yeah, no, I was offended when that guy said it was trash, and I actually also mentioned Girl School. I was like, Girl School had eight albums in the '80s. How could you kind of just dismiss that? He's like, no one listens to Hellstar or Girl School. Those are trash bands. Nobody listens to those bands. I'm like, you are so out of touch, man. I was like, yeah, just continue on with all your standard mainstream bands and just keep thinking
but people have their views, Jamie. People have their views on music, mate. They just people like what they like and don't like what they like. You can't change a person's thoughts.
I don't normally get into it, but I just thought that was a little outlandish because he just seemed like.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's like, if you like Iron Maiden and Slayer, like, how could you just totally write this stuff off and think that they're bad or things like that? Like, you may not like it, but to just think that they're like not talented or something, that's just strange. Yeah. I don't normally get into it with people online. I don't really care to do that, but
no, that's it.
This specific time, I was a little offended because I love Hellstar. I think all those albums are incredible, and I called them out on this bullshit.
Fair enough.
But I believe that was actually my pick. So, Chad, if you want to go up next here.
So that's our 5, eh? Is that our 5? Must be, because
I think we're just going straight. Great.
Going straight to whatever.
We are on. I think we are on our 5 or 6. So maybe we'll just do a couple more rounds here, and then we'll kind of
no worries.
Off, and then just rip through some honorable mentions real fast. But yeah.
This one here, Fifth Angel.
I've heard of him, but haven't heard that.
Oh,
album.
mate, you got to hear him.
That's a reissue. Reissue.
Yeah, it's a reissue. Metal Blade Records.
I think they've got 2 albums, haven't they? 2 albums out.
Yeah, they've the two. There's 2 early ones, but they've also reformed and they're releasing music again. So I haven't heard those ones yet. But
cool.
This is straight out heavy metal sort of power stuff from the US. What's this? This is 1986, I think this is.
Yeah, I think that around that time.
Yeah, 1986. But this is one of those albums I put on, and you got to listen to the whole thing. You don't really skip anything or move over anything.
Reminds me of the band Pegasus.
Yeah, the cover. Yeah.
Yes.
Wings of Destiny, I think it's called, or whatever it is.
Yes.
Wings. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, great album. James
great
Bird is the guitarist on this. He's a great guitar player, a bit of a shredder. Another one of those shredders in the 80s.
Yeah.
But the first track in the Fallout just opens great. Fifth Angel, Wings of Destiny. A couple of slower songs in this, obviously. Fade to Flames finishes the album pretty well too.
Are they a Christian band? I've heard
No,
that.
no,
No.
not known as. I mean, they might have Christian members, but they're not known as a Christian band. Yeah.
Awesome. That's an album, another album I need to add to my collection. I have to win lotto now.
Yeah. Well, don't we all? You know, but yeah, it's one of those bands that, yeah, it's just if you like your straight out 80s heavy metal style with great guitar solos, good vocals.
Awesome.
Can't go wrong.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know people actually really love that band.
Oh yeah.
For whatever reason, I think they're kind of more in that catchy realm. Like you kind of gotta listen to it a few times, and then you're like, oh, okay, I see and then you kind of get adjusted to it, and you kind of like it more because it is super kind of catchy melodic stuff.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, like I know maybe the first time I would have discovered it, you kind of just do a quick little skim through, and you're like, oh, there's really not much going on here. But it's one of those things. Probably the more you listen to it, the more you kind of find the catchiness and melodic in it.
Yep. And I grew up in the 80s, so you know when I hear this, I mean this type of stuff is very this type of heavy metal was very prominent in the 80s with the blazing guitar solos and great vocals and things like that. You know, it's it's a lot of nostalgia in there as well for me. But that's Fifth Angel. And
yeah, their second album is pretty good too. As a Time No One or something like that. I forget it off the top of my head, but yeah, it's cool. They got the yellow bars around it. I forget the name of the
Tom Will Tell.
Oh, okay, yeah. And actually, I'm not familiar. What year is the first album?
That's 86.
86. Oh, okay, cool. I was going to guess 86 or 87 or something like that.
Hmm.
But cool. We'll continue on with Frederick's next pick here.
Okay. I'm not sure if you ever heard of this band before, but this a band called Hex with No Return. Their debut album, which was released in '84. This is just pure power metal. Great vocalist by Manzo. He only did one album. Yep. He's a very Ronnie James inspired vocalist, and as the album says here, Ronnie James there for the inspiration, because this is very doesn't sound like a Dio. This is very fast paced, shredding. This was released on Shrapnel Records, which label deals with shredders. And Dan Watson, the guitarist, he was a shredder. This band is still going. Their second album, Under the Spell, was leaning towards more of the thrashy elements, but had that power metal theme. And then they went on to death thrash, and then death metal, and then they came back with two great albums on High Roller Records, which is back recently. More of the speed power metal. You got songs like Night of Pain, Fear No Evil, Beware the Darkness, Invader, all great songs. Vocalist is high pitched, clean vocals, very not screamy, just that like you said, Chad, that early 80s metal vocals, those high vocals, This is a great album, great debut. If you haven't heard it, you need to check it out. It might not be to everyone's taste, but this sort of metal is what I grew up on, the 80s, I'm a 70s, sort of 70s guy, and Ronnie James Dio was in the 70s, so, but this is not 70s band, this is an 84 speed metal, power metal band. I really love the cover by Alvin Penny, who's done covers for Heathen and other, sort of more thrash metal bands.
Yep.
So it's really, really cool. You can tell by the cover, it's a power metal. It's that fantasy sort of, spacey kind of looking cover. So Hex.
Yeah, that's a great album. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that first one, they were probably a little more raw. They probably weren't fully sure what direction they were going to go in next. And then,
Yeah.
Chad, you did pull up that second album.
Yeah, the second one here.
Oh my God, that is one hell of a beast of an album right there.
That was leading towards the power thrash.
Ooh.
Yep. Yeah.
And then they went totally death metal after. So
Right.
Yeah, death metal. Yeah.
But even their death metal stuff is quite good. The third album was much more into the sort of thrashy death. You know, when thrash and death were still, joined. And then later on, pure death metal on the next couple of albums, and then they faded away, and then they came back and went back to the original power metal, speed metal style.
Yeah, they had Quest for Sanity was their, I think, one of their.
Yeah.
Sanity, and then Morbid Tales, I think, was their other one. I think Morbid.
Yeah,
Morbid Reality or something.
Yeah, that was more death metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the first album is a great, and the second album is
Cracker.
great too. Yeah,
Crackers.
Both been reissued on CD with DVDs. You know, with both vocalists singing each other's record songs. So
yeah.
Which is,
yep.
I need to get, but Hex are an awesome band.
Under the Spell is very hard to get. I've been wanting it since I started collecting CDs, and I still have not been able to get it. Oh my God, I'd love to have that album.
Yeah, Under the Spell. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's always been a hard one to get. Even back in 2000 when I was trying to grab it, it was too hard. I ended up getting a bootleg for it.
Yeah, I got it when it first came out. So I got the when it first came out at the time. So I was pretty lucky. But the reissues are good. But to get the original Under the Spell, you probably pay big bucks for it if you do find it. Because Roadrunner Records, Road Racer stuff is very, very highly collectible stuff,
Yeah, that's one hell of a band. That second album, oh my God.
It's brilliant. Death Riders. That song.
You did remind me of when you talked about the progression that they had. It reminded me of another band that had a similar kind of progression. Not as much, but the first one was kind of maybe just kind of heavy metal power, and then the next one was like thrash power, and then death thrash sort of thing they got into after. It kind of made me think about Adam Craft, where Adam Craft's first album was kind of heavy metal powery sort of thing, and then the second and third album there with the guy from Venom just totally shifted directions into like super aggressive death thrash. And I've been trying to get those last two Adam Craft EPs, just really awesome stuff.
They've been reissued.
I think that first album actually would fall under power metal-ish sort of thing. Not really.
Yeah. I need to get those Adam Craft too, because like I said, they've been reissued Back on Black Records, so they're easy to get the reissues. But I don't know about in Canada, some stuff doesn't get through, or it's hard to get. Like here in Australia.
No, everything's hard to get here.
Yeah, I know. I know. All right.
And anyway, I guess I'd be up next here, and I'm not really sure why. Well, I guess this was 89, so I can understand why a whole bunch of 80s people don't know who this is, because they would just kind of just lump it in with 90s stuff. But this was 89, and this was the album that I was trying not to use to describe Hammer, because this is the album that I wanted to use the description. Just sounds like a hammer, like the production is just, if you get it on with a good bass, it's just like boom, boom, boom with a hammer. So the first Martial Law album.
Awesome,
yeah.
And just incredible production on this. This is obviously just, you're kind of looking at it, you know what you're getting yourself into with the power metal sort of thing. And it's just like hits you like a hammer. That's just all I think about. Like not really all I think about, but it's when I hear it and I put it on, I'm like, here we go, just a pounding hammer kind of production and sound there. And yeah, power metal. This is full on power metal, incredible stuff. And yeah, I was never really sure why it's not super well known. I know even when I take pictures and post it or whatever, no one ever really has heard of martial law.
I
And
think they had a few albums out, didn't they? A few
Yeah.
albums.
Yep.
I think I've got one album of theirs, which was more power metal, very power metal.
yeah, and yeah, well, actually, the second album is pure power metal. The second one's called Power Game,
I
and
think that's what I got.
they stuck with the
That's the one
style.
I've seen. Yeah.
Even though it was 1993, the second album, they stuck with that power theme and just went whole with it. And I love that.
Yeah.
If this was 90s, I definitely would have stuck that second martial law album on here. But even though we're doing 80s, I still love this first album. Yeah,
Yeah.
super. The production, I have to touch on that production and mix on this. Super incredible
Nice.
production. If you get this on a pounding stereo, it just pounds.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's all proficient players, good vocalists. There's nothing wrong with it. No slow songs. It's all like upbeat, fast tempo metal all the way through. And yeah, I would wish that this would be more well known, and maybe that's why I'm showing it here to hopefully get the word out. And yeah, if you can get your hands on martial law, check it out.
Awesome.
And
Excellent.
yeah, they were an American band, so why people wouldn't really know more of it, I don't know. It's not like an obscure like Swedish band or nothing, so it is American. So
Yeah,
yeah,
what I've noticed with American bands, a lot of Americans don't get into their own bands. It's more overseas they get into it.
but if I had to define a few bands as pure raise your fist like power U.S. power metal, this is right up your alley if you're looking for that sort of stuff.
That's another album I need to check out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And maybe we'll just kind of do one round here and then just kind of finish it
Yeah.
off. An hour, almost veering into the 2 hour-ish mark. So
No
I think
worries.
it's kind of cool because I think at this point, all three of us could probably just run a 3 hour show, just the three of us, just on power metal. So this is great. But maybe we'll just run one more round and then kind of just kind of finish her up here, so to speak. Well, we'll run through some honorable mentions real quick, but let's just do one good solid round here next. So, Chad, if you want to take her away with your one last kind of favorite.
Yeah, I'll finish off with a oldie but a goodie.
Yes.
Old school Metal Church of Dark, yeah.
Metal Church, the Dark 86.
Is that a reissue? Because I haven't seen that
No,
one.
this is original. This is an original pressing.
Okay, because I saw the sticker there. I thought it was
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, I don't know why it's got that sticker on it. But
Is that an actual sticker? Is that a sticker on the cover?
Yeah, it's a sticker on the cover.
Oh wow, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a reissue, like an anniversary sort of type of record.
Yeah, the back.
I was gonna show that one.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just all. I just love every track on this. Ton of bricks, man.
Yeah, great thrashing song, heavy pounding.
Yeah. And David Wayne, obviously in vocals. Rest in peace. Another singer that's gone too soon. But yeah, ton of bricks. Start the fire. There we go.
This is my Metal Church stack here.
Yeah,
nice. Primo all Metal Churches.
Yeah. Not much I could say that's bad. Well, there's nothing I can say about it. Yeah, great band. You know, they're another one of those bands that's hard to categorize as well.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes they're a bit thrashy. Sometimes they're a bit straight ahead US
power metal.
Yeah, power metal. Yeah, but I chose this one because again, this is probably this is the first Metal Church album I actually heard, so I chose this one.
This was the first one. The debut was the one I heard. This was, this was power metal at its finest. like people call it thrash metal, speed metal. It has them elements like the
Yeah.
back,
Yeah.
you know, but it is power metal.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's an interesting topic that we could probably do an hour just on how the hell do we describe metal church, or how do we box them
Yeah.
into one category, and still to this day, people can't. We can't.
Yeah. Sure.
Metal is a very strange sort of musical. There's so many different titles and subtitles of all the music. You know, you can't categorize everything.
Well, and Metal Church specifically are just one of those bands that you still cannot put them in a box. Like, are they power metal? Are they thrash? Are they heavy metal? Are they progressive thrash metal on some of the later ones? You know, and when Hal joined there, so like they were getting some of the, you know, maybe not prog, but you know, more technical prog elements on some of the longer songs. But still, even to this day, if depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you it's thrash metal. You know, maybe you think it's power metal. Maybe someone else thinks it's a combination. So those are one of those weird bands that you still cannot touch on.
Yeah, can't. Yeah, a hard time with them.
So it's interesting they show up in a power metal list, and we can kind of just like hash it out. Well, what are they? Are they power? Are they thrash? What the hell are they? And still, there is no answers on like fully what they are, but they're clearly one of those bands that were able to master touching on a bunch of different genres and just blending it all perfect. All right, cool. Yeah, we could probably just have an hour just on Metal Church and just kind of work it out. And you know, actually, we had some pre-chat with Frederic here, and I know there's kind of not rumors, but where they were before Metallica on the thrash wave. They had early demos that they recorded that were thrash, and people kind of viewed them as the first ever thrash band. And then Metallica actually put the album out and kind of squashed them out of that conversation, even though years later, with the internet being more prevalent, that those early demos got released and people can hear it, and people are like, hey, this actually came out like 2 months before Kill 'Em All, and maybe they were the first
2 months.
Anyway, cool. So we'll continue on with Frederic's here, last pick. Even though we'll show our little honorable mentions, we'll rip through more quickly here.
Okay. I'm not sure if you guys know this band, but Explorer.
Is it? Yep.
Symphonies of Steele.
Yeah.
This is a heavy metal heroes album. I think this was 87. This album came out. This is just pure power metal. It's you know, you got songs like World War III, Going to Hell, Metal Detectors. You know, just some great fast-paced power metal. What also interesting about that band that they had different vocalists on this album. I think there was about 3 vocalists. So every vocalist had their different take on the songs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the original, I think, European cover.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen. Yeah, yep.
And then you got the.
I wish they would have put that full size in the booklet. I hate when they do that. They should put that.
And that's the Metal Blade cover.
Yeah, nice.
I think everybody's seen that. That's the cover everybody really knows about. You can tell by the cover it's power metal with skeletons, and it's a great album. I think they only released this one album. I can't be sure.
There's another album. I used to have it called Recipe for Power.
Okay, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, I used to have it, to be honest, and I got rid of it. In one of my, you know, I'm selling stuff type thing. I'm moving to streaming. I sold it off.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
I do believe that they're still active. I think, but just a great sort of obscure underground power metal from the 80's.
Mm.
If you haven't checked them out, you know, just give it a listen. You know, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. You know, So Explorer.
Very good.
You got me with that one. I've never heard of that one, so I definitely want to hear that one. And even when you're showing the little covers there, I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
sorry.
cool.
I
And
do apologise. It's not bigger.
I can
I wish
already
that they
tell.
were bigger. You know. But
I can already tell just by the covers that, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna dig that. So yeah,
I think it's reissued on a double CD. I think Metal Blade have reissued it again on the double CD, so it's very easy to get.
well, I'm
I think
gonna see if I can get that one, or I guess that would be the only kind you can get, or unless you can get the old LPs, but that's probably ching ching ching.
yeah, I think big money for the original LPs. Yeah,
That's probably why Chad sold it. Because he'd probably say, "Hey, I can get freaking $150 for this thing or whatever."
I think that's another topic we talk about what albums, expensive albums.
Right, yeah, actually, that would be a good topic.
Yeah.
The most expensive albums you own, and then we just do a show with all our rare expensive albums or whatever. But I'm glad I'm going to do my last main pick here, and then we can just kind of rip through quick honorable mentions here. We're probably veering into the 2-hour mark, which is great. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm glad I'm going to end my main picks off this band because nobody else brought it up, even though it is super mainstream. And before I show it, I think this is the essential 80s power metal band for American anyway, not the European. Obviously, Halloween and Blind Guardian would be the essential European power metal band, but this is what I would consider the essential 80s power metal band, and it's kind of just going off what deal it started with Rainbow Rising, and then along comes Sabotage, and they kind of just took the whole power metal theme and said, okay, here's Deal's Rainbow Rising. Well, we're just gonna take here's the next wave of power metal, and obviously John Oliva was doing a bunch of shrieks and screams and all this outlandish, remarkable stuff on the earlier albums. But then here comes Power of the Night. You literally got the fist right on the cover.
Yeah.
You literally have the term power Power of the Night in the album title. So this was like your essential 80s power band, Sabotage. This is one of the albums that I was doing that in-show shuffle where I was like, okay, well, if somebody else picks it, I'll just move it down. I won't even show it. But to my surprise, no one did touch on it. So I'm super glad that I would finish my picks on the Sabotage. Again, if nobody is familiar, I'm going to assume anybody watching. I'm going to assume anyone watching would be familiar with Sabotage. And actually, they probably went the whole last 2 hours thinking, okay, when are they going to show Sabotage? When are they going to show Sabotage? So here we go. We are getting the Sabotage on here.
I was going to show the first Sabotage, but I thought somebody would bring it up.
Well, the same here.
We did bring up Sabotage a few times. I said Sabotage once, but I didn't want to continue on that conversation. I wanted to save it for the actual album. And then you did bring up Sabotage when you talked about the Sirens cover there. So it had came up, but we didn't really get into details about that. So I'm glad that did come up.
I thought you were going to show their Hall of the Mountain King album, actually.
Yeah, I think probably I didn't because I did the 80s vocalist show here last week or whatever.
Yeah, I watched that, yes.
I had that on my 80s vocalist show, so I thought I'd switch it up. But again, in terms of pure power, I think this one is more pure power, obviously with the front cover probably swaying.
This album and the follow-up, a lot of people don't like it. I think it's just too commercial. But I really do love them albums.
Fight for the Rock. I love Fight for the Rock, and
me too. I love it.
I kind of consider maybe Fight for the Rock. It's not similar to that Fifth Angel, but it's one of those albums where maybe you're doing a quick skim through and you're like, oh, there's not much going on here, kind of boring. But then it's one of those albums that if you kind of play it over and over, you do really fall in love with it. And so that kind of happened for me with Fight for the Rock, where you're kind of listening to people's opinions saying, oh, it's not that good. But again, I love Sabotage and John Oliva's voice, that there's no way I'd gloss over anything that he does. anything that he appears on. There's no reason to skip over that. So Fight for the Rock is you just play it a few times and you get adjusted to its catchiness and its melodies and slower songs.
I love his other project, Dr. Butcher.
Yeah, that's cool stuff too.
You know, that's a bit more thrashier, a bit more heavier than Sabotage.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I don't know if I probably don't listen to it enough to really touch on like maybe the thrashiness aspect, but it's definitely darker. Like you put it on,
very dark. Yeah,
darker.
yeah, but the Olivia brothers were great on all those early Sabotage albums. They were just great albums. Then after I lost interest with the Zach on vocals, sort of Sabotage. They went a bit more sort of really symphonic power metal. But then when John came back to do the Poets, what one you mentioned before,
Madman.
Videos, yeah, that one I think was their heaviest album that they did.
I love that album, and I'm kind of glad that did get brought up because I know a lot of people I know a lot of like 80s purists checked out at that point with Sabotage because Zach, or I guess even in kind of the early 90s, John Oliva was doing much more experimental symphonics, not symphonic, but he was doing keyboard.
He had that Pasadena opera, didn't he? He was on that.
He was doing opera and keyboards, and he was just doing whatever he wanted, with kind of whatever his heart felt, he just did it. So that's kind of cool. But I know a lot of people did check out, say, "Oh, I'm not interested in this band anymore." And then Zach did come along, and again, John Oliva was just writing a lot of the stuff for him, and then he took a backseat, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, John Oliva did come back officially for that full-length album, that Poets and Madman, and that is one hell of an album. Oh, man, that's really great. If anyone watching at home did check out with Sabotage, I'm pleading with you and begging with you, please check out that Poets and Madman album. Incredible. I know there's even a 10-minute song on that album where that's one hell of a 10-minute song. I'm not a big fan of these super long songs, but that's one of those songs that does really pique your interest the whole 10 minutes way through.
Yeah. I think that album's going to be reissued one day on Ear Music. They've started reissuing all their back catalogue, and I think that will be one of the albums that will reissued last, I think, because it's the last album Sabotage ever done.
Yeah, I definitely own that. Yeah, I would have to own it.
Yeah, you can tell that's power metal.
I was going to try to show the spine. Yeah. Because I guess the title it does actually say right there, Poets and Madmen, but you can't really read it unless you own it and look. But, one hell. The 10-minute song here, Morphine Child. Oh, fucking great.
Okay.
But
I haven't heard that album yet.
Commissar. There's Drive, The Rumor, there's Surrender, Awaken. There are some great tunes on this.
Any ballads? Any ballads?
There's a few, but I will be honest, there is a couple skipper songs, but that still doesn't deter from the album.
No.
I'd still put the album, if I had to rate the album here right offhand, I would put it 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, awesome.
Maybe even a 9, pushing a 9, depending on the day. Depending on the day.
Yeah, because every album is different, and you could always, with their catalog, you can put any albums in any order. Like I said, on the day, what you want to listen to. You might think, I want to listen to Sirens. This is my number one album, and then you might put on Dungeons album and think, no, this is my number one record for the day. So their catalog is, all different, which is good.
That Dungeons EP is one hell of an EP. Actually, shout out to the female metal fan guy, the female metal fan channel, is he just picked up his copy of the Dungeons EP, and I was telling him that's one of the greatest EPs ever. Maybe for the 80s, that's one of the greatest 80s EPs ever. And I think he said he'd never actually heard it yet. So I'm like, you should listen to that. He owns it, so I'm sure he's going to listen to it. But
yeah, of course.
I was just talking about that a couple of days ago with him, actually. And I did just want to finish off with the Sabotage Power album here. Is really cool. Is you know, there's all these fan-made videos on YouTube. It's really cool. You can go on and find a fan-made video of the track Warriors, where it's overlapped with the album. I mean, with the movie The Warriors from the 80s.
Yeah, I've seen that one. That's a good video. Good.
Incredible!
Video.
It's so cool, right? Because the Warriors guys, the Warriors were like a gang, an '80s gang. Well, hypothetically for the movie, so they're a gang. So you know, it just lines up perfectly with the Warriors song, and it's that almost should have been like an official video, so to speak. Again, it's another one of those things. I plead with anyone watching: go on YouTube and watch that Warriors where they sync it up with the Warriors movie. It's so cool.
Awesome.
And that will kind of just finish our show here. We should kind of wrap it up, so to speak. I guess this is the term, wrap it up. But I'm gonna fire off a bunch of honorable mentions. Again, I'm just gonna fire them off real quick here. If you guys can remember what I fired off, and maybe touch on a few things after, whatever. But certainly, I've been. It seems like I'm always trying to pump this album up whenever I can. I think I've had to show up on like 3 or 4 of my shows and some other people's shows. I'm always trying to pump this album up because not a lot of people know of it. Is the Heir Apparent?
Yeah.
I've heard of them. I've heard of them. Yep.
The vocalist is just incredible. That's super talented guy. And I'm surprised this never came up on anyone's list. Chastain.
Actually, I did have a Chastain album I was going to show. That's one of my honorable mentions.
I think if I had owned Voice of the Cult or Voice of the Cult, I would have put that on my list. It's just because I actually prefer Voice of the Cult better than this album.
That album. Yeah, it's a great album. Yeah.
And I'm just a little more familiar with Voice of the Cult, even though I don't own it. But anyway, it would probably be sacrilege if we didn't have Chastain on the show. People would be like, "You didn't have Chastain on the show," because that is like your ultimate female power warrior chick. So you have to get on there. Agent Steele.
Yep.
Oh, that's a bit controversial.
Well, it's speed, power, thrash. Again, that's actually another one of those bands like Hellstar, where they're just blending it all perfect. The thrash, the power, the speed, and just perfect. Super outlandish vocals, almost like these soaring, screeching vocals. Chad used a description earlier with one of his bands. I forget which one specifically, but he used a term where it's just like the vocals are just like screeching, ear piercing. That's what the term you used. Ear piercing.
Yeah.
What band was that for? You used your term for?
I think it was Midnight. I think I used for Midnight Crimson Glory.
Yeah. So that's Agent Steele, the singer, had that like.
Yeah. It's a great album too. Awesome album.
I got the Jack Starr album here. The power metal. And,
Jack Starr.
Yeah, like that. I love this album title. It's almost like this was released in '87, almost like a comic book cover there. Doro's Force Majeure.
Yep, awesome.
This might be a little controversial in the sense that people might not even think it to be power metal, but Mass's War Law, Mass from Germany, War Law.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And obviously, looking at the cover, that's a pure power cover right there. And there's like Warlaw, Devil's Gate, Loud and Proud, Fire at the Night, See the Light, Chained, Metal Hymn. So, and actually, when I was listening to that over, I'm like, that's definitely power metal, even though people don't consider it to be power metal. We got the Nasty Savage here.
Well, that's controversial too, that album.
Kind of thrashy power.
Yeah, I would say it's thrash, but it does have elements of power, but I think it's more thrashy.
Yeah, probably.
But it is a good album. Good album, yeah. All the albums are great.
I know you mentioned Nasty Savage on one of your videos, Chad, where you talked about Penetration Point.
Yep.
And you were saying how they're kind of leading into a little more longer songs.
Bit more technical, that one.
Yeah.
Isn't it a little bit hardcore as well? Influence as well?
I don't know.
Probably just more pure.
I don't actually have it. I've listened to it.
I'm actually about to die on my computer. I just need to charge it up.
Charge it up.
And then this wouldn't be a power metal show without mentioning Virgin Steel.
Yeah, Virgin Steel.
I probably prefer some of the more other later Virgin Steels that came after, Age of Consent, and another one that's just slipping my mind. But obviously, you're just looking at the cover here, a freaking sword right there. You know what you get yourself into with the power metal. And this is cool. I don't know if it'll zoom in, but this is cool. They did this photo shoot with all these.
Yeah.
This one here, they're holding up the huge sword. But it's funny, they included they must have hired all these girls, or maybe it's all the band members, groupies or something, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
But I always like this little band shot here inside the booklet with all the girls, because I'm like, well, the girls aren't in the band; they just put them in there for the photo shoot. So I always like that one.
Yeah, Virgin Steel, a great power metal band as well.
Yeah, oh, actually, here's some of the. Yeah, I probably do prefer. It's not showing them all here, but yeah, Age of Consent and some of the other later Virgin Steels are a little bit better, although this one is pretty good.
Yeah, I like Noble Savage.
Yeah, Noble Savage, that's it. There you go, spot on, yeah. Yeah, spot on. I mean, Noble Savage, Age of Consent, I probably like a little bit better, probably.
Yeah, Age of Consent's good.
Yeah, the first two were a bit more rockier, the first two albums. I think they were trying to find their way on the first two records. But then when Noble Savage came out, that they hit the mark.
Yeah, and I forget the guy's name, David something.
David DeBra or something like that.
Yeah, and the singer, but anyway, the singer is one of those singers where you hear him sing, you know it's him. Like he has just a super unique voice and a super unique style that when you hear him sing, you know it's him. Even if
I know.
Song or band or album or nothing, but if you just like hear a few songs and you get familiar with his voice, anytime you hear his voice, you know it's him.
He has those high pitched wails, doesn't he? Those really. Oh.
Yeah, but he does have a super unique like voice.
Yeah, his voice is quite unique.
Yeah, really cool. Almost like how like
Big Diamond.
Almost how Mark Shelton with Manila Road had his own kind of unique style.
Yeah, love Manila Road.
Probably could have thrown some Manila Road on here, but Manila Road was hard to touch on, where they weren't really full power. They weren't really thrash. They weren't really speed. They were kind of at times they mixed all of them depending on the album.
Well, I would call them epic metal. Epic, like the epic metal, because epic could combine all the genres into that one word, because all the albums are different.
Yeah, and then even to the later 80s, Manila Road was doing some super extreme stuff. I forget the album, but they have a couple albums near the back half of the 80s where he was getting into some pretty heavier stuff.
That's another topic we could talk about. All
Yeah, well, yeah, Mark Shelton, I did recently pass here. I think.
Yes.
I'm not sure on the date, but he did pass kind of recently in the last 5 years, and yeah, he was a super passionate, unique guy. He was one hell of a player. I know for like guitar players, I've read that he does like really unique things on the guitar that people still can't even do. They can't quite figure out how he was doing some of the stuff he was doing.
No, he was a great guitarist. Even when he started the band in the 70s with the first Manila Road, that guitar work on Metal and Invasion, the first two, you could hear those guitar tones, very doomy, very heavy. Just a great.
And he's even touches, and then Mark Shelton, he's wearing the headbands, right? And he's kind of got that 70s
doomy
psychedelic stoner vibe to him.
Yeah.
Hippie vibes, I was trying to say.
Yeah, sadly he passed away. He could have put out more great music if he was, wasn't sick and that. But things happen in life. And
Manila Road has just a huge discography. They released stuff all the way up to the 90s, 2000s. Actually, I think back in the 2000s, he just put out like 5-10 albums right there in the later half.
Yeah.
And even a lot of those albums I'm not familiar with, like the Atlantis album and some of the later albums I'm not even super familiar with.
Yeah, I've only got like 5 of his albums.
Only like, but yeah, the Middle of the Road
It's huge.
discography,
Yeah, it's huge.
big. It's big.
And even the side projects he'd done. I think Bell something, a band called Bell, not Bell Witch, but did another band which is on High Roller, which is more thrashier, doomier. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, cool. And Chad, do you have any honorable mentions or anything you want to rip?
A couple. We'll go Riot.
Oh,
Under Steele.
oh wow. For me, to me that's more speed metal for me. I don't know about you guys. What you think?
That was my Riot album, but...
I don't know. I was struggling for some more USC type dudes on the power metal, but yeah, it's a great album. Yeah.
All the albums are different as well.
Yeah, they are different.
Their 70s stuff was hard rock. The Rhett Foster years were more heavy metal, and I think they went into the speed metal period, and then after that they went all the way to power metal.
Yep.
So they're one of those bands. Oh, that's controversial. That's controversial. I would call that speed metal as well.
Progressive speed for me.
Progressive speed.
Progressive speed.
And I had that Hex, which we've already brought up Hex, so that's probably all I had at the moment.
Awesome stuff. Cool. And then Frederick, you got
okay. Sinner, the first 3 albums, very power metal influence. Matt Sinner went on to join Primal Fear, another great power metal band. This is all 3 albums on 3 CDs, or 2 CDs. So
I think my favorite Sinner is the Fast Decision. I think it's called Fast Decision.
Let's have a look and see.
And then the one with the girl in the front's good too. Danger Zone, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's got all the 3 albums all in this package. But I love Sinner. No one mentioned this band, Savage Grace.
Oh yeah.
It's like Rage, they're sort of speedy power metal. Nobody mentioned Lars Rocket. The first two albums were pure power metal. Then they went on to thrash.
Yep.
One obscure band nobody mentioned, Power Lord, The Awakening. The only album, 6 tracks. This is sort of the power thrash, released in 86. We saw Halloween.
Never heard of that one.
Fortress. Power metal band out of the USA. You got songs like Metal Meltdown, sort of corny songs as well, like She's Too Good for Rock and Roll. So another power metal band, Ruthless. Another US power metal. And this band even has Jack Black on bass on this band. You know Jack Black?
Yeah.
The comedian? But I don't think it's the same Jack Black. I could be wrong. It could be.
Let's have a look. You zoom it in.
I don't think it's Jack.
Yeah, no, I reckon that could be him. I don't know.
Because I tried to Google up see who was in the band, but there's nothing on YouTube or anything.
What year was that one?
This was a Canadian release, Banzai. 85. And nobody mentioned Warlock. Burning the Witches.
Yeah, yeah. J-Dub had some Warlock.
I think I got the Doro. This is
Doro
Warlock. I think I prefer Warlock over Doro. I think because Doro is a bit I love her metal side, but she has like two sides in her career. She's got the metal side and she's got the hard rock. I prefer the metal side of her. And nobody ever mentioned this album, Stormwitch. German power metal. Their first two albums were like Running Wild, more of the satanic speed metal. Then this is their like under Jolly Roger sort of album, but it's not pirate metal. This is I'll just take it out of the wrap because it's more better to see.
I think the first album they had, Walpurgis Nights.
Yeah, that was more satanic speed metal. See the band members, very similar to like what Saxon did on their Nations of Flags album. You know, with the military suits, and Running Wild did this on their Victory album. Mm-hmm. You know, with the military sort of look. So this is a great album. You got a song called Raven Lord. Hammerfall did a cover of that song on their debut album. It's great speed metal. This is a higher roller reissue. So you can tell by the cover, it's very like Three Witches. You know, you could expect songs like Stronger Than Heaven, Raven Lord, which is a very power metal sort of type of song. Rats in the Attic, Jonathan's Diary, which is more of like a horror sort of theme. Dorian Gray, you know, Dorian Gray, the picture. So the painting where he gets older. So yeah, Stormwitch. If you haven't heard this band, check them out. Awesome power metal. That's it for me for my shout outs.
Cool.
Yeah, that Stormwitch album is super catchy. It's one of those albums, just like some of the other albums we mentioned, where you maybe do a quick skim through whatever and think, oh, there's not much going on here, but that stuff's super catchy if you do play it a few times through and go,
Stormwitch. I think their first, 3 or 4 albums were good, and then they started to go on a different tangent, and which weren't very good. But the first 3 or 4 are brilliant albums.
Yeah, I know when the 1992 album that they had, I don't know the name off the top of my head, but they had a 1992 album, and it popped up used for me on one of the sites, and I checked it out on the YouTube, and I'm like, it's kind of questionable. Well, I think it was okay, but it definitely wasn't good enough to buy. I'll tell you that much.
No, I had a few more mentions, you know, but I didn't want to be here showing like 150 records.
Well, it's funny. I will lead off with this. It's funny when I asked Frederic, when I asked you to do the show, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'd be good with power metal. I don't have very much power metal. Sure, you don't.
Sounds like you do. Yeah, sure, mate.
Well,
whatever.
For me, you know, for my ears, I wouldn't call these power metal bands. You know, especially back in the 80s, I wouldn't call them power metal. I would just call them heavy metal. But you know, with all these sub-genres and genres, you know, it just came into, you know, sort of power metal. But it still has that old speed metal sound from the 80s, which I like, you know.
Like you probably ended up having the most obscure stuff out of all of us, and you're saying, you wouldn't be good for the show. You ended up having the most obscure stuff. So, you know, I can tell you, you were wrong. You were right for the show.
I'm sure Chad's got some even more obscure stuff than me.
Oh, no. I mean, I don't have a lot of. I'm just starting my record collection, but you know, I'll definitely pick up some of the stuff you've mentioned tonight. I reckon that's today.
Well, you know, I'm always searching out for these sort of, you know, underground bands, you know, which I've called speed metal. But in today, you know, in the 2000s, they'll be classified, you know, in any genre. They could be put into a thrash metal genre, speed metal, and power metal. You know. And that's another topic, you know, where we could talk about, you know, bands, you know, sort of which fit in all of the genres of metal.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I think we will just wrap up the show here. And from what I can tell, this was one hell of a show, one hell of a discussion. I think we pretty well nailed every kind, maybe not every, but we probably touched on pretty well every kind of essential power metal band in the 80s, that's for sure. There might be the odd one or two that we missed, but I think we pretty well all did a pretty damn good job. Just the three of us here. We probably got a little basically a 2-hour show, so I will kind of wrap it up. And thanks a lot for everyone watching. Peace, love, metal, all that sort of thing. And yeah, thanks for watching.
James, I just want to say thank you for inviting me onto your show. It's been a pleasure.
Good to
meet you, Chad, in person.
Same with you, mate. Yeah.
Yeah,
and you obviously, J-Dub.
Yeah, it's been a great show. I really enjoyed myself. I thought I'd be a little bit nervous. I was a bit nervous, but great show, Jamie. I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, you guys, for doing this as well. It's your guys' first show with me, and yeah, you guys were fine and great like that. I had no doubts when I asked you about that. Again, I knew that you guys knew your stuff. I didn't need to babysit you and ask what your guys' picks were, nothing stupid like that. It's like, these guys are going to be spot on. I don't need to babysit them. They know what's going on. So anyway, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. And then I will, these guys do have channels of their own, so I will be linking their channels up if you didn't catch it at the start. So I'll link their channels up there, and you guys can like and follow them and subscribe. And maybe I can hop on, maybe I can do some shows for them. Maybe I can guest on some of their shows or something like that. I'd be more than happy. And I think we'll all be out of here. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.
Yeah, peace.
Okay.